We made copies.
Oh, hi.
Good morning. Oh, hey there, Internet. We didn't imagine seeing you here today, which is why we set up the cameras. I'm Roth Cordet. That's Spencer Gilbert. Joe Starr. Dan Merle.
Hello.
Good morning. We have a lot to talk about today in the world of the internets. We have Kristen Wiig as the villain in Wonder Woman 2, potentially. News updates, Oscar predictions. It's going to be a good morning. Let's start with Kristen Wiig, who is being eyed for, which in Hollywood speak, that's like she's in talks, they want her, they're in negotiations, blah, blah, blah. It looks like it's probably going to happen as Cheetah, the villain in Wonder Woman 2. This is via Deadline. The film is set in the 80s during the Cold War. So I'm starting to wonder how this all fits together, but we'll get there. It's unclear which version of Cheetah they're going to be drawing upon. So we have a synopsis of a couple different versions of the character that we are going to read for you today. Spencer, you're going to do Barbara Minerva.
Okay.
Joe, you'll do Deborah. I'm going to quickly do Priscilla.
These are all cheetahs throughout the ages?
These are cheetahs through the 80s. So
Cheetahs across time.
cheetahs through the sands of time. Starting in the 1940s era, she is a blonde Washington, D.C. debutante of aristocratic upbringing who also has an overwhelming inferiority complex and suffers from a split personality and self-importance. A beautiful combination, not unlike many.
Batman.
Yeah. Not unlike Batman.
Pretty much.
But like,
She's
Catman. Catwoman.
but Billy was
We have a
telling me there
Catwoman.
were certain like she would like look in the mirror and the mirror would look back and be like, be the cheetah. So I'm hoping that plays a role. Joe.
But
I just want
hold
to
on.
point out how Spencer just reverse engineered Catwoman from Batman. Catwoman.
Catwoman. But I also love
That's probably how the character was invented.
Well, the way the character was invented
Aquacat.
was like just back in the day when like this is the same era where like you could start a business or buy a home with like a bathtub full of nickels. So it's just like it's I know they worked hard, but they also seem really lazy because they're like, we need a name for like a rich debutante.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a fancy lady. Like a
Priscilla
Priscilla Rich.
Yeah, it was.
All right, job's done. Time
Yeah.
to go home to my like 5 wives and kids that I support with this naming comic character job.
It's so
I hate old people.
on the nose, and I said that to Billy this morning, and then we're both like, "Oh, it was the 40s." By the way, for an immortal being that I know for a fact that you are an immortal being, that I don't think that's how the 40s
I'm not immortal.
worked.
There's just a very old portrait of me in my attic.
I love that your vision of every rich person in the 40s is Scrooge McDuck. Just some large container full of coins.
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking to my grandpa, and he's an amazing guy, but he's like, yeah, I just like started a used car business by like asking. Like I walked in and I had gumption, and it's like that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen
There's
anymore.
so many more people now.
Yeah.
There's so many more people. There's just too many of us. Let's do the Logan's Run. Hey, Joe Starr, read us our
Hi.
next.
I don't know what era Debbie domain is from. I apologize. I want
20 years.
about
60s,
60s.
yeah.
Okay. That's not a fun voice to do. 40s would have been like Priscilla Rich. But Deborah was introduced as the niece of Priscilla Rich, also lazy. Also a beautiful young debutante. Debbie feels remorse for her wealthy upbringing, very millennial, and decides to become an ecology activist, very millennial, meeting Wonder Woman and striking up a friendship with her. However, she's later brainwashed into picking up her aunt's mantle as
one does.
That's
You know,
happened.
sometimes women have these friendships and they just, you know.
I don't think this is millennial. I think this is like the late 90s era where like the worst possible problem people had was like, I don't like my job.
Well, this is technically, God, do you remember the 90s? The dream of the
I do.
90s?
Yeah,
I think
remember-
this is when we actually could complain about dumb stuff. We complain about dumb stuff all the time.
That's true. We
That's-
complain about even dumber stuff.
made a living.
Our problems are ever realer and our
Yeah.
complaints are ever dumber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like our complaints are maybe the pettiest complaints.
Yeah.
Have you
Like
seen
I'm
my
still
Twitter
complaining
feed?
about Dunstan checks in, and
Yeah.
like, there's a lot happening in the
Problematic movie.
We're going to get back to the Deborah and what her role was, Joe Starr, and then we're going to go to Barbara Minerva, who's of the 80s era, and then more recent.
Yeah, Barbara Minerva. Give me like a 80s backing track, like a Beverly Hills Cop, like Eddie Murphy.
Barbara Minerva, British archaeologist, born as the heiress of a vast fortune. Barbara develops a passion for archaeology that eventually led her to search out a tribe in Africa who utilizes a female guardian with the powers of a cheetah.
Oh, it's a big uh-oh is coming.
I think I know which one they're going with.
With the aid of the caretaker, the ancient plant god Uzkatarga takes her place after being told that she would gain immortality. Unfortunately for Minerva, the host of the cheetah persona is intended to be a virgin. Minerva is not, however, so her transformations were part person, part blessing.
Yep, cursed because she's not a virgin.
She experiences severe pain and physical disability while in her human form. Yeah, cut the music. And bloodthirsty euphoria while in her cat form.
Wow, that is
Wow.
that is
So if you guys weren't
cats.
if you weren't able to discern exactly what Spencer was pulling out there, let's just pull out one or two of the problematic areas in this description,
that was a lot.
which we do not know that the film is going to go with at all. But man, they're slut shaming her. That's one.
How is
Spencer.
the most recent version of this character
Well, you said the
most
80s, right?
regressionist also version?
In a new segment we like to call "The fuck is this?"
How is that more? Wow. Okay.
This is there, and there's probably iterations of this character that we do not know about. So, full confession, I know very little about
Well, if
about
they
this
take
character.
advantage-
So this was put together for us, and we're very grateful for that. But if you
Don't
guys
pull the curtain back,
if you
Ryan.
guys know of other, well, that's fine.
'Cause I just assumed
I
she
can
was
say what I don't
Chitara.
know. Chitara.
From Thundercats?
From Thundercats. I was like, oh yeah, that's Thundercats' girlfriend.
Well, if it's set in the 80s and they go Barbara Minerva, I really hope that they really take advantage of the soundtrack. And while her inciting incident is happening, when they find out she's not a virgin, we hear Rains Down in Africa.
Yeah.
I think that'll just be.
But I
Toto.
like I
Little Toto.
just because it's us and we're a little all over the place, let's just pull out once again the potentially problematic aspects of this character, noting full well that we don't know what the script is and we don't know what version of her it's going to be. We don't know if it's going to be amalgam or totally fresh origin of the character. But Spencer, dive in.
Well, I wasn't really listening as I was reading, but
Okay.
in scanning back over it, it's like she's punished for not being a virgin,
Slut shaming.
and she's a British lady who has the power of an African god.
That is appropriation. Yeah.
Isn't that the Enchantress? Isn't that
I was
character
like,
just
is it an
exactly the
artifact?
Enchantress? And it's like Enchantress, and then like a little bit of Black Panther thrown in there as far as like Africa and crazy herbs and stuff, and then like a little hint of misogyny. I don't know. I'd say don't go with that one.
And
It's-
I mean, dare we say bloodthirsty euphoria while in her cat form? Cat, vagina. That's when she's at her angriest, is when she is
Are
representative
you saying
of a
she's a
female
thirsty
form.
pussy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Dang.
What?
Roll
Why
that graphic.
What the hell is going on here?
Why was that me? He said it.
Don't.
He said it. Oh my God, this is unfair.
How is that the worst
come
thing
on.
in the list? She's a white lady with the Africa god because she's not a virgin. How is that the worst thing? Come on, guys.
You know what?
Yeah,
just
can
a
I go
word.
with none of these? Can I?
Roth, I
think
wish you were
Patty
more comfortable
Jenkins
talking
is
about
going
vagina on me.
yeah, Patty Jenkins is not going to go with what's behind door A, B, or C.
I don't think she is either. We have to assume that the script is going to develop a different origin for this character, but it does seem like a curious character to introduce now. I mean, why not play into kind of like the mythology that was introduced in the first film? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to use any of this. If I had my guess,
All of it goes.
No, I think it's all going out the window. I doubt there are many cheetah purists out there that are like, you may not, sirs or madams, change that origin.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see if Kristen Wiig even gets the part. I love Kristen Wiig. I think she's hilarious. I do have to say, and this is maybe a little unfair, and I hope that she subverts this expectation, but traditionally, I've had a little trouble making the adjustment because she is so funny and good at being, she just has a certain energy, and part of her comic energy is also her ability to be serious when she needs to be. Like, that's just her certain jibe. It's not like Jim Carrey, whose manic energy was like, whoa, and then when he's Truman, it's like, oh wow, he's very toned down and subdued. Like, part of Kristen Wiig's funniness is when she's very serious in the face of something that is funny. So I have a little trouble sometimes when she's making that turn in my head, kind of just, reconciling that with like, okay, she's doing a different thing, but it's similar to totally similar to some of her humor beats. So I think that she could be great, though. She's an amazing performer. That's just something that's kind of in my head. It struck me a little odd. But as far as like, a lot of it's going to be the tone. And I mean, that's been the with every one of these movies. What's the tone? What is the tone of this going to be?
Yeah.
You know, if it's Patty Jenkins, I hope that you know, we've gotten some of the angst out, I think, a little bit. Like, I don't know if I want Wonder Woman 2 to be all angsty, because we got a lot of angsty Steve Trevor stuff in Justice League, and I don't want Wonder Woman 2 to be all angsty Steve Trevor stuff.
But it'd be weird if she was like not depressed in the 80s about it, but then when she was still in that 100-year period.
Yeah, don't
exactly.
worry about the
Don't-
continuity.
don't worry about the continuity.
Yeah, you gotta
Right.
figure.
I want
anyway,
her to
I don't
work.
know.
I want her to work at the art gallery that Balky works at in Beverly Hills Cop. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping for.
Yes.
I
trust Patty Jenkins. Is what
So
I'm
do
saying.
I.
I don't think she'll be the big bad of the movie. I also don't think you'll hear them say the name Cheetah. At most, they'll be like, "She's fast, like a
cat."
cheetah." Yeah. But let me pitch this to you. You go with the Barbara Minerva take, but she plays her like the Target lady
Who's the target lady?
From SNL.
from SNL. Kristen Wiig's Target lady character.
That's one of her more broadly comedic characters.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, do you think that it sounds like that she's going to be pretty straight in this, though? Or is she just going to be
That's
a
what
big,
she's been
fun,
doing is
campy
like in Mother and in The Martian,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, Kristen Wiig,
Actor.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Chris Pratt and Paul Rudd can be superheroes, why can't Kristen Wiig be a supervillain? I agree. When I see her on screen, I'm like waiting for the funny
for
part to
something funny to
start.
happen, yeah.
But if I trust P. Jenks, you know, if she sees something great in her, then let's do it.
It's all about the tone. It's all about the tone of the movie. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer was super camp in Batman Returns, but that performance worked because that was
A campy movie.
that was in tone with the movie. So it's so much of it is just, you know, are you going to get Patty Jenkins knows what she's doing. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there are a lot of contingencies on this for me to be like, you know, that's certainly an intriguing choice, and I'm curious to learn more.
A lot of the times we think that the things that sound like the oddest fit can be the best in the end. And I also trust her that that she will find the correct origin for this character, or the correct motivation for this character. And then it'll play into the Cold War. What's that about? All right, I'll think about that later. And that I think Kristen Wiig is wildly, insanely talented, and she can do whatever she wants. So, cool.
All right.
All right, news. There's lots of news. Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt, and Leonardo DiCaprio have signed on for his upcoming film, which now has a title. It is called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the one, you guys remember this. This was set around the Manson era, but it feels like that's going to be more of a backdrop. Well, with this information, it more and more feels that way. This is going to be coming out on August 9th, 2019. And here is how the film is described. A story that takes place in Los Angeles in 1969 at the height of the hippie Hollywood. That never went away. The two lead characters are Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, former star of a Western TV series, and his longtime stunt double Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt. Both are struggling to make it in a Hollywood they don't recognize anymore, but Rick has a very famous next-door neighbor, Sharon Tate. So it is going to be sort of adjacent to the Manson murders and that period
Literally.
of time. But literally,
Right next
yeah.
door.
But also, can I just point out one thing?
Fence.
Brad Pitt lands in Hollywood and they throw him in front of a camera. There is no way that Brad Pitt in any era spent his entire career as a stunt double. That wouldn't happen ever. That person gets thrown in front of a camera right away, whether they can act or
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I could see him like just sticking around as like a himbo, you know, guy, just like eye candy model actor, whatever. If he wasn't also talented, I could see that.
I don't know, man.
Well, it depends on what he's playing. If he plays his Burn After Reading character, that guy's not going to be a lead actor.
Yeah.
That guy's a
Idiot.
Gat model, maybe.
Moron. Yeah.
There's a lot of morons who are movie stars, don't you think? Just
I'm not
kidding. They're
stepping
all
into that
brilliant.
Yes, there are. I don't know. Quentin Tarantino news is a little weird to me still after all the Uma Thurman stuff, so I'm kind of like, cool. I don't know that
it
Brad Pitt
especially
or
strange
Leonardo
this is-
DiCaprio are required to be like, maybe we won't do your film because of how you treated your creative partner, but I don't know if that's their responsibility, but it is weird that like the cycle of Quentin Tarantino news is he treated this person like human garbage, and then now he's filming his next film and Leo signed up, so I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, to me, I mean, we never really addressed this, but it is strange in this context of the story with Tarantino and Kill Bill and stuff. Like, I read, but all accounts that's another thing. I just don't know what the hell is going on. Like, you read the story, then you read what Uma says, then you read what Quentin says, and I read all those three things, and I'm like, I don't know where this lands in the middle. It's definitely an issue there, but like, I don't know if that would affect these guys necessarily saying like, well, I'm never working with Quentin again. I think that is kind of its own thing off here to the side. That's like, because it sounds like Uma had some stuff that she said that the Time story didn't have. If you listen to him, if you listen to her, she says they're cool, and he says they're cool, but the Time story makes it seem to think that they're not cool, and think that's he said shit, and they're still sorting that out, and they need to. So that to me is kind of its own little sideshow. I agree the timing is weird to be talking about his new movie while this little Kill Bill sideshow is playing out over here.
And I didn't mean to necessarily like drop a bomb on the, but that's literally my first reaction is like, wait, I thought we were, I don't know, like.
Yeah, I'm still very much kind of in, like, that was my initial thought too, was just like reading that New York, that initial story, I was like, oh my God. And then, not that you automatically believe one side or the other, but I thought that Tarantino I read his response to that, and that seemed very kind of, he was rebutting specifically things and rebutting the specific. I'm saying it's true. I'm just saying like his side of the story addressed some things that I thought were very troubling from the New York Times story, and then you fold in with Thurman saying, she's not saying F that guy, I'll never work with him again. She said, yeah, this caused some significant problems. We worked through it. Here's what happened, but I want to come forward with what happened. Like, so that's a whole thing. But the other thing is, again, like Sharon Tate, I have trouble always with that. It's like, what is the tone of this movie going to be? Because underneath the fact is like, this kind of sense like, oh, zany, wacky Hollywood, and their next door neighbor Sharon Tate. It's like, but that's not, I mean, that's weird. Like, so it's this is another thing. It's like, everything I hear about this movie is stranger and stranger. I mean, he's getting his cast together, and I love Tarantino movies. He's made maybe one movie that I could just flat out say I did not like. Every other one of them I've liked to varying degrees. Some of them I think are brilliant, but this is another one where it's like, it's like, is it set dressing? Is it, how do you do that especially in this with everything connected to that? And it's just weird timing. So I'd be curious to see what this
about
movie
what.
Is. Does it seem odd? I agree, like just saying, and then Sharon Tate is the next door neighbor is a little odd given that was a pregnant woman who was murdered brutally along with several other people. But do you think it's odd to have this news come out in the midst of they're still working through what's going on between Uma Thurman and Quentin Tarantino? I mean, mixed in with that is that Uma was also talking about Harvey largely. Yeah. And then, which is it was about a culture of being mistreated, right? Whether in one very specific way by Harvey and in another way on set by Quentin, which I think maybe Hollywood is shifting away from. Look, it's an abusive industry. We all know that. If you've been on a set, if you've worked for people that throw staplers and go crazy and throw fits and are abusive to their employees, it is everywhere in this industry. That's the truth. And perhaps that is starting to shift as well. But what do you think?
Quentin Tarantino is a great filmmaker, and I did follow up and read that the Uma Thurman stuff is kind of going on its parallel track to his filmmaking career when he's the two will cross and stuff like that. But I am really just like, something's going to come out about Quentin Tarantino just being creepy. Don't you think? I mean, just like listening to him talk and like.
Well, the foot thing's a hilarious joke, and then someday it's going to be not.
Yeah, joke. Right. Like, I don't know. I think that everyone's like holding their breath to be like, when's Quentin Tarantino best buds with Harvey Weinstein? Like, when's his creepy story going to drop? So that's where I'm like, it seems like there's something bubbling under the surface with his life and career, because he's just an eccentric, strange dude, and I hope it's not there. But like,
I'm kind of waiting on it.
Every time I see a Quentin Tarantino story these days, I'm like, uh-oh.
Here it is.
When I see him trending, I'm like, uh-oh.
And I know a lot of feedback. So
when I said Quentin Tarantino, did you think that's where I was going?
Yeah, I was like, the thing happened, or whatever the thing is. He's one of those guys for me where I'm like,
I also really liked when you misspoke and said Quentin Tarantino, and I think we can do something with that someday.
Yeah, definitely. But late 90s sketch.
I know a lot of comments and guys, Quentin Tarantino. I know a lot of feedback and comments will be like, just let that be its own thing, and just I want to hear about the guy's movies and stuff. But I think follow through is an important thing with what's going on right now, and I think a lot of sort of the controversies and stuff lack any kind of follow through or conclusion, because the controversy is sexy, but not steps like 2, 3, and 4. So that was my immediate reaction, like hearing the big news about Quentin Tarantino's movie was like, but what's our follow-up here? What have we learned? How have we grown? How are we going to get better if we're just sort of jumping right into, here comes this Manson movie, yes!
Sure, well, and that brings
And not
us
just
to our next...
entertainment, but yeah, follow through in
across
any issue,
industries.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that brings
it's a
us
culture
to
change.
our...
It's a sea change, and the
next-
follow-through should be that he learned that there are lines that should be crossed and lines that shouldn't be crossed.
Well, he may, or I mean,
Which I hope he
don't
has.
actually know, but the point is, what's interesting about this particular period of time is there seem to be certain consequences in some cases and not in others, and where and how that is, I can't unpack, because it is odd, right? Like this one is this result and that one is that result, which seem very different. In any event, I guess it is a case by case thing, and if he and Uma Thurman. That is the one thing that has come out about him, right? Is that accident, and in which he put her in danger, but then he was also spitting on her and choking her. If you guys haven't read this, go read it. It was essentially Quentin.
Couple hours, yeah.
It'll take you a few hours to unpack all of it, but when you think about the two ideas, there's Harvey, right, which is harassment. And then Quentin, which is being an abusive boss, basically, right? Highly abusive. I mean, like, he was physical with her. Yes, it was for a shot, but did you really need to do that? I acted a little bit back in the day. I did a scene where I was choked. You don't actually have to choke someone.
Yeah.
Wow, bravo.
Thank you.
What's
believed
that?
it. I was
it's
like,
also
Rob,
that-
stop. You
It's
have so
also
much
that
to live for.
Hitchcock line
You
of
don't.
like,
You don't really even have to barely be touching them. It's on the person to make it look like
Right.
you're being choked.
where does commitment to filmmaking end? And because you know, if you talk to Quentin Tarantino, he'll say like, well, I have to because that's how it looks good on film, and it doesn't look good the other way. And it's the Hitchcock question.
Yeah.
Where does commitment and obsession to filmmaking
And where
end?
does
And where
abuse
does
start?
just abuse and just general respect for just humanity and somebody's person outside of the project end? And that is Hitchcock, that is Kubrick, that is Tarantino, that is so many of the quote unquote, and I'm not even saying so many of the brilliant filmmakers of the time have consistently, now read about what Kubrick did to Shelley Duvall on the set of
It
The
is
Shining.
vicious.
You know, and this is and
Or Coppola to Winona Ryder.
Right, exactly, and I mean, this is a recurring thing of just like Martin Sheen on Apocalypse Now, what he went through on the set of that movie, and and it's something that has just been like, well, they're brilliant and you have to do it, but I mean, I think that's what we're going through right now. It's like, you have to examine these lines, and one of these lines is like, your commitment to filmmaking is what made you excellent, but also there has to be a point where you say you are working with human beings, and the art is not always worth literal torture.
And
I
the
think that's
truth is the
discussion that needs to be had.
motivation. I think the person has to unpack their own motivations, and when are you just actually doing this because it's an opportunity to overpower someone? So speaking of, and we're talking about there are consequences in some cases and not in others, Jeff Franklin of Fuller House is out as the showrunner of Fuller House at Warner Brothers TV. They are not renewing his overall deal. And according to multiple sources, this comes as a decision because they've received complaints about him in the writer's room and on the set, and being accused of being verbally abusive to staffers, making inappropriate statements. So this may or may not be, he hasn't been accused of sexually harassing anyone, but he has been accused of being inappropriate and abusive. So, right, in that case, there was a direct consequence to that. So I don't think anything, we're human and we're not, I know I've said this a million times, but it's true. No one's perfect. And so as we move through this, and that's not said as an excuse for anyone's behavior, by the way. I'm just saying, like, what's happening right now will not be done perfectly. There will be some cases where there seem to be consequences and other cases where there are not. And whatever the reasons and the financial investments they have in that movie may be playing into it. I don't know.
And what does play into it is talent, or the perception of genius of, like, Quentin Tarantino. He's a genius. He can get away with stuff like that. Whereas the Fuller House guy, it's like, come on, we could have like one of those water sippy birds run that show, and it'd be the same. So let's get him out.
Whatever happened
But
to
he's treated with that.
predictability?
But again, it's power. It's all power. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about power. It's about abuse of power. It's about this idea that people are untouchable, that they are so brilliant and wonderful at what they do that you can't, that you cannot confront them. You just have to accept. That's how Hollywood. I mean, it's like you're saying, Roth. That's the culture of Hollywood. The culture of Hollywood has run for Louis B. Mayer from the first studio heads on this concept that there are people
any
in charge.
industry with a lot of power and money.
Oh, sure.
Any
CEOs,
industry,
CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, any kind of power structure ultimately comes to at least one person. In the case of Hollywood, and directors and writers and studio heads, several people that are just like, these are people who are so important that they are unquestionable. And no matter what they do to you, and no matter what they say to you, and no matter what they ask you to do or tell you to do, or are they unreasonable, how much of their time and your energy they demand, you cannot question them because they are too good at what they do and too, like you're worse than them, you're less than them, they know more, and if you want to succeed, you got to toe the line and go up to their standards. And that's the culture that has to change, because the capacity for abuse inside that system is vast, and there's not one person who's worked anywhere ancillary to this industry that has not worked for one of these people or with one of these people. I have worked in several jobs where I have been asked to work hours and days and time, weekends, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, and there's no option. It's you do that or you don't work here, because that's the contract that you sign. You sign your life over to me in this job, or you hit the bricks.
Well, I think that people are playing with we talked about this a little bit before, people are playing with your hopes and your dreams, and they know that you have been dreaming of being in this industry since you were a wee one in many cases, and here you are, you're going to do anything to stay, in some cases and others within reason, to stay within it. The very first internship I had, I remember in college, the guy was like, it was in a development company, and the guy was a maniac. He was completely abusive to his assistant and would physically throw things. And the guy just came out to me one day and pulled me in, and he was like, "Hey, I got a piece of advice for you. Get out." It was literally directly out of a horror movie. I didn't. And then I worked for people that, I worked 100-hour work weeks and would stay up for 3 days straight. I'm looking at you, 3 days straight, onlining a thing that I told you was gonna take 2 weeks, but no, you gave me 3 days to do it. So I stayed up for 3 days in that house, and I gave up tickets to go see Wicked to stay up for literally 72 hours. And what was your remark to me on one DVD that was one example DVD, not even the final product? Why is there that pixel in the menu?
And do not get her started on ice skating.
Yeah, that was my little aside. The point is, it is a very abusive, pervasively abusive industry, and I think we're going to, I hope, start to see that change as well.
And it's a tough job, and it does require sacrifice, and it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Like, well, so what, you just want to work a 9-to-5? Like, like if you were working in...
I want that island life. Anybody?
Yeah, but it's not that hard work isn't required to make movies and TV. It's and you do have to put in long hours, but this idea of like, you have to do everything I ask unquestioningly, and I don't care how long I keep you or how much I use you or how tired you are, you have to do it. And it's like, that's what has to change overall. And it's not just hours and
Well,
work.
the tricky thing is, like, you do need that recourse for abuse, but also film sets and production, like, it also kind of has to be run like the military. Like, there has to be a chain of command and somebody, like, giving orders to the lieutenants, to the generals, to their...
It falls apart if you don't have that.
It falls apart if you don't have somebody making decisions and everybody else following orders to some extent.
It's true, you're right. And film sets, to your point, are really dangerous places.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just talking about the amount of electricity that is used on a film set is really, really dangerous. And people die. They die on film sets.
It's a construction site.
Yeah.
There's stunt people, like there's pyro,
there's
electricity.
Yeah.
Well, but there's...
My boy, we talk about this all the time. If you do not have that clear chain of command, things will fall apart. And if the stakes are life and death, you just have to have it. The movie's not going to get made. People will get hurt. Nothing will get done. This is really, Billy's going to come out in 2 minutes. Go ahead.
No, but I've been on sets where I've worked on a few different sets as a PA, and I've worked with like the assistant directors, kind of like the director is in charge of the artistic vision, but the assistant director is in charge of running that set. The train's running on time, the AD, the lunch gets there on time. Actors are on their spots, everyone is in their position, and they are the unquestioned authority as far as like running that set. that power structure, I agree, that has to exist. There has to be an unquestioning level of command as far as just like, if this person tells you to do something, you do it. However, I've worked with ADs that are amazing and they get the job done and they get it done on time. And when they need to be a taskmaster, they're a taskmaster, but they do it in a way that is not abusive. They do it in a way that's just like that. You know what they need you to do, and they will be firm with you, but they're not abusive. And then I've worked on sets where ADs are literally grabbing PAs by the collars and just grabbing them. Who's like, get that lunch there in 5 minutes. Oh, I swear to God, and then, just throws them away and just screams in their face.
they
And then you look
probably
around
had
at everyone.
that.
Yeah, because they probably had that.
Yeah.
And you look around at everyone on the set, and everyone on the set just goes like, that's how it works. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
There's a clear line,
Hello
and
to
most people know it when they see
Hollywood.
it. Yeah. That's the thing, is that yes, there has to be a power structure, but it cannot be absolutely unquestioned.
No, it can't be, I think this is like the difficult period of time every single person in this industry and across multiple industries, as you're talking about, Joe, are in, and we all just have to. I think there has to be internal reckonings for everyone to start thinking like, how can we all just be better human beings in this and still get the thing done?
Yeah.
And that's not going to be perfect, and people are going to get stressed out, and they're going to lose their temper, and they're going to, especially on a set. Those are long days, and there is a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure, but finding the way through that and identifying the clear line of like, no, that is now abuse. Stop having these birds attack that woman. Like, you're Alfred Hitchcock, but really stop now.
Yeah.
Like, everyone needs to feel empowered to be like, hey, Hitch. You want to stop with the birds?
Yeah.
Let's stop with the birds.
A little less birds.
A little less birds. A
You
little
had
less
the
birds,
shot
Hitch.
4 times ago. Let's,
I had another story about Dr. Pimple Popper,
Great
the
show.
series, but
Great
we'll have
show.
to be talking about that another day.
Fair enough.
Because we got to
Fascinating.
move along here.
Human body's a magical thing.
Do you watch it?
I saw the special.
You did?
Is
Yeah.
it special? Is
It
like
sounds
is it
horrifying.
like a Christmas
It
special?
is, but it's like, well, I mean, we'll save it. We'll talk about it later.
Tempted to go there now. Okay, moving on. We have some news. We're changing up how we get our Fan Friday questions. We usually get them on Twitter. We're no longer going to be doing this. After today.
Don't
the
at
show-
me.
Well, you can
No, literally, it's easy.
literally don't add us. We're not
Yeah.
going to do it there anymore. Add us with other stuff, though. I love hearing your ideas. So keep adding me. But where we're going to collect in a good way, where we're going to collect our Fan Friday questions is going to be in a community tab, which you can find on our channel page. It's right next to the playlist and video tabs. And each Thursday, we're going to be posting for questions and then take them directly from that comment thread. So you can post your own questions or upvote a question if you want us to answer them. That will be unveiled after this show, and it'll be a place where we can engage with you guys and talk a little bit and chat and do the stuffs.
All right.
Exciting.
Sweet stuffs.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to plug this real quick, and then we're going to do our final Oscar predictions for this week, which are Best Picture and Best Director. We'll go through that really quickly. But you know what you have to look forward to this afternoon at 4 p.m.?
No.
Dun, dun, dun. It is the valiant return of Ken Knapsack to Movie Fights versus this gentleman right here.
Oh, yeah.
Spencer, shit talk the man. Do it.
I am
Heard
going to
him.
make enough enemies with today's show. I'm taking a very unpopular position and arguing against a man who spent his whole life thinking about the opposition to this question. So I'm full heel mode. I got my Slytherin shirt on.
Yeah.
It'll be an unofficial drunk movie fights for me probably, and we'll see where it goes.
Ken is a great fighter. He is hilarious. I know what these questions are. You were both very passionate about them, and I think the audience will engage as well. I think this is going to be really, really good movie fights. Check it out. I'm excited to see it. We love Ken. I don't know who to root for. It's evil or good?
Just listen to the arguments. You know?
Yeah.
Just let
Based
the
on the
argument, let the
arguments.
rhetoric sway you.
No, I've already chosen.
No, I already made my decision ahead of time. Oscar predictions, really quick. Best Picture, we have Best Director, Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan, Get Out, Jordan Peele, Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig, Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson, and The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro, who is probably going to win. Thoughts?
Well, that's the best picture nominees up there. But
Guillermo will probably win, I think.
Thank you, Jason.
There it is.
I can see Chris getting it. I think that Guillermo will, though. It not only does it have some of the best directing, but it has the most directing. Well, although no, Christopher Nolan would win the most directing award.
He would.
How do you identify the most
It looks
directing?
the
It
most
looks the
directing.
most like there's the most like whoa that shot like on a shot by shot basis. Not directing as like a storytelling performance thing, but as like a whoa look at that shot, whoa look at that shot. Like he definitely did the most.
It's a craftsman movie, yes.
award or a storytelling award. So I think it's between those two.
All right.
I think Guillermo probably wins. If I was going to put an upset alert on anybody, I'd say maybe Greta Gerwig.
I think that's a very outside chance.
Yeah.
But I think she directed the hell out of that movie.
Yeah, she did. She did. Yeah. 100%.
That movie does not work with a very deft hand. It can be annoying like that. And it's great. So also shout out to Saoirse Ronan for that portrayal.
I think Get Out's still your upset.
You think so?
For director.
Yeah,
Love it.
Just because it's just because it has hung in there all year. I think Get Out is going to upset a lot of categories. I agree with your thoughts on Christopher Nolan. If he's going to get any category for Dunkirk besides like sound design, it'll probably be this. Del Toro's the favorite, but yeah, I don't know. Jordan Peele, man.
I think Jordan Peele is going to walk away with an Oscar,
Uh-huh,
but I
I
think
do
it is
think-
going to be for best original screenplay.
Screenplay, yeah. And you know what? Again, the more people that just hear about these movies and go to see them, the better. I do think Guillermo most of the precursor has been taking it, so it'll probably be him. Let's talk about, but you never know. Let's talk about Best Picture. Call Me by Your Name.
Logan.
Darkest Hour, Dunkirk.
Logan.
Get Out. Lady Bird.
Logan.
Phantom Thread, The Post.
Phantom Logan. The Logan.
The Shape of Water.
Shape of Logan.
And Three
Logans.
Billboards.
Logan Bird.
Get Logan.
Get Logan. Done Logan. Yep.
I'm getting this from Billy, like, dude, come on. You've been talking for an hour. Very
It's
quickly.
Shape of Water. Good night, everybody.
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water, probably.
Yeah.
3 Billboards.
Congratulations.
Very
Probably three.
possibly though.
Those are the two that's neck and neck. 3 Billboards or Shape of Water. Could go either way. Prediction?
Logan.
Logan.
Yeah, Phantom Logan.
Phantom Logan.
The Shape of Logan with 3 Logans outside Logan, Missouri is a possible upset.
I think it might be 3 Logans, but I'll say that The Shape of Logan has a very good shot. Thank you for joining us today. Do check out the community tab. Do tune in for Movie Fights. It's going to be a great one. We will be here later today with other things and stuffs that you can click.
Logan.
3 Logans, 5 Logans, 6 Logans.